Okay, good evening members and Happy New Year. Welcome to this special digital meeting of Council being held via Microsoft Teams on Thursday the 24th of February 2022. It is my unfortunate to inform you that we lost a retired councillor, Graham Hughes, recently, and I would like to hold a minute's silence in his memory. Thank you. Thank you, members. I would also like to hold a minute's silence in solidarity for the support of the people of Ukraine after today's distress and events out in Europe. Thank you. Thank you, members. Members, I will now ask Mr. Dave Street, Corporate Director for Social Services and Housing, to confirm the proceedings for tonight's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, members. We will not be live streaming this evening's meeting. However, it will be recorded and made available to view via the Council's website, except for those discussions involving confidential or exempt items. Therefore, the images and audio of those individuals present and speaking will be publicly available to all via the recording on the Council's website at www.caerphilly.gov.uk. If members lose connection during the live meeting, please make every effort to reconnect. However, the meeting will continue as long as it remains quorate. Democratic Services staff are available and will be able to assist you to reconnect if necessary. I would also wish to remind everyone that the Mayor has the discretion to terminate or suspend recording if, in her opinion, continuing to do so would prejudice the proceedings or that continued recording might infringe the rights of any individual. The Mayor also has the right to remove persons from the remote meeting if that is necessary. All members should have already checked their headphones, microphones and IT kit before the meeting commenced. I wish to remind members and officers to ensure that all microphones have been muted. Group leaders, deputy leaders, cabinet members and other key officers have been asked to leave their cameras on. All other members and officers, please turn your cameras off unless making representations. Members will need to unmute their microphone and turn on the cameras when called to speak by the Mayor. Votes this evening will be taken using Microsoft Forms. When a vote is required, the monitoring officer will direct members to open show conversation where the form will appear and then click on the yes, no or abstain and then click on the submit vote. The names and votes cast will be recorded and published on our website following the meeting. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Street. Item 1 on the agenda is apologies for absence. Members, we have received an apology from Councillor June Stone, Deputy Mayor, Mrs Christina Harry and Mr Robert Tranter. Apologies are also as detailed within the meeting conversation chat, and if any members are aware of any apologies not listed, please add them to the chat or notify Democratic Services. Thank you. Item 2, declarations of interest. Councillors and officers are reminded of their personal responsibility to declare any personal and/or prejudicial interest in respect of any item of business on this agenda in accordance with the Local Government Act 2000, the Council's Constitution and the Code of Conduct for both councillors and officers. Are there any declarations, please? Okay, thank you. There are no declarations. We'll move on to item 3, which is the Capital Strategy Report for 2022 to 2023. Councillor Stenner, I understand that you will introduce this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The purpose of the report is to submit to full council the authority's Capital Strategy Report for 2022-23 in accordance with the Prudential Code that was introduced by the Local Government Act 2003. This report was presented to Policy and Resources on the 20th of February 2022. The Capital Strategy outlines the principles and framework at the very high level that shape the authority's capital investment proposals. The principal aim is to deliver an affordable programme of capital consistent with a financial strategy that contributes to the achievement of the Council's priorities and objectives as set out in the authority's corporate plan. To consider associated risk, recognise financial constraints over the longer term and represent value for money. The strategy defines at the highest level how the capital programme decision making identifies the issues and options that influence capital spending and sets out how the resources and capital programme will be managed. In addition, the capital strategy should comply with the Prudential Code for Local Authority Capital Investment introduced through the Local Government Act 2003. The key objectives to the code are to ensure that the capital investment plans are affordable, prudent and sustainable. The capital strategy sets out the framework for capital investment decisions. The Prudential Code has the following key objects: that capital investment plans are affordable, prudent and sustainable. That Treasury management decisions are taken in accordance with good professional practice, and that local strategic planning, asset management and proper option appraisal are supported. The recommendations are shown as 3.1 that the capital strategy report be approved. I move the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stenner. Councillor Adams, I understand that you will second.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, apart from just formally recommending to second this, of course, there's much in the report that we all need to read very, very carefully and see why the council can come to the position that we are in. And having done that at Policy and Resources, and we look at it in governance and audit in so many ways as well, I'm very happy to second this movement of Councillor Stenner.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. Having been moved and seconded, the debate is now in order. Members, if you have any comments, please indicate now using the hands up button. Please turn your camera and microphone on when called and lower your hand by clicking again on the hands up button when you have finished making your representations. Thank you. Councillor Dix, please.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll just ask the Cabinet Member regarding investments. This council before has got caught up with investments. We can all remember the Icelandic banks back when that crashed, and we were left in a pretty sorry state to get our money back because we invested outside the United Kingdom and it wasn't underwritten by the Bank of England or the government. With the Ukrainian situation, none of us know if that's going to pan out. So I'm just wondering, are there any investments that you're aware of as the Cabinet member that could be affected by the Ukrainian invasion, Russia's invasion of Ukraine? Is there any investments that we've made that could be affected by that now or in the future?
Councillor Stenner, please.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Dixon. Yes, very appropriate question given what has happened in the Ukraine today. I'm sure that Head of Finance Steve Harris would be better positioned to answer that question. Whether or not he has that information at the tip of his fingers, I don't know, but I'm sure it is something that he could get if he hasn't. So if I could pass over to Steve Harris, please.
Mr. Harris, please.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Certainly not aware of any direct investments in the Ukraine, so we're not at any risk in that regard. Certainly as well, we will receive advice from our Treasury advisors that if any investments are at risk, they will alert us to that and we will take appropriate action, but certainly not aware of any direct investments in the Ukraine.
Thank you both. Councillor Cushin, please.
Madam Mayor, just a quick question on 5.4.3 of the report, where it says, due to decisions taken in the past, the authority currently has a 313.7 million debt outstanding as of the 31st of March 2021. I'm quite curious actually to find out what these decisions in the past were, and secondly, do we anticipate that this will be reduced somewhat at the end of 31st March 2022?
Thank you. Councillor Stenner, or should I hand it over to Mr. Harris?
I think possibly Steve is the best place to answer.
Mr. Harris, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. This debt has been taken out over a significant period of time. Some of it will predate local government reorganisation, for example, in 1996. The level is monitored very closely. We've got Treasury management prudential indicators that we have to operate within to make sure that our borrowing remains affordable moving forward. There will be borrowing at some point in the future, but equally we will be paying off some of the existing loans as well. But just to emphasise, this would have been used for a range of purposes over a significant period of time.
Thank you, Mr. Harris and Councillor Cushin. Councillor Etheridge, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to ask Mr. Harris about the interest rates. I recently heard that the crude oil is actually going through the roof, and I know that he is referenced in the report 17 to specialists, financial advisors, and I would like to ask Stephen what discussions, if any, you've had with them in regarding the increase of interest rates. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Etheridge. Mr. Harris, please.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. We do meet regularly with our Treasury advisors. You'll be aware as well that periodically we have member seminars where there's an opportunity, obviously, to ask pertinent questions around Treasury management. Clearly, we're in very volatile times, obviously made much worse by the events of today. We will be seeing pressure on interest rates moving forward, but we do work very closely with our Treasury advisors, and they do provide us with forecasts that we can use for financial planning purposes. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Councillor Morgan, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to ask the Cabinet member, it's regarding 5.6, the commercial activities, as councils move into areas where they are investing. I would seek the assurance that we would first look, if we were to make any of these investments, that we would first look to make those investments within our own borough in order to support the circular economy. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Morgan. Councillor Stenner, please.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Morgan. Yeah, absolutely. Whenever we are looking at commercial ventures, then we would be looking at investing in our own borough. Even, you know, obviously there's we have commercial investments that we are looking at that are actually within our borough, and obviously, you know, I contact you outside of the meeting and we can have a chat about these. Okay.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Thank you both. Councillor Etheridge, your hand is still raised. Is it a legacy hand, please?
Yeah, sorry, I got problems with the computer.
No problem,
Okay.
Councillor Etheridge. Thank you. There are no other hands showing, so I will call on Mrs. Lisa Lane now to take us to the vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Members, you will notice a pop-up box appear on the screen shortly. Please click on yes, no, or abstain, followed by the submit vote. If the pop-up box does not appear, please click on the show conversation button and the voting poll will be open in the chat. The item is agenda item 3, Capital Strategy Report. The vote will be open for 60 seconds, members. If any members have difficulty voting with the form, I'm happy to take verbal votes. Members, that concludes the vote and the recommendations are carried. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Lane. And we will move on to item 4, which is the Treasury Management Annual Strategy, Capital Finance Prudential Indicators and Minimum Revenue Provision Policy. Councillor Stenner, I understand that you will introduce this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This report seeks Council's approval of the authority's annual strategy for Treasury management to submit for approval a data set of prudential indicators relevant to Treasury management and capital finance, to seek approval of the minimum revenue position policy to be adopted by the authority for 2022-23. This report was scrutinised at Policy and Resources on the 20th of February 2022, where members questioned officers and sought clarity on the report. The revised Code of Practice for Treasury Management in the Public Services provides that an annual strategy be submitted to members on or before the start of the financial year to outline the activities planned within the parameters of the Treasury Management Policy Statement and the Treasury Management Practices. The Local Government Act 2003 also requires the authority to set its Treasury Management strategy for borrowing for the forthcoming year to prepare an annual investment strategy which sets out the policies for managing its investments, giving priority to the security and liquidity of these investments. Incorporated within the report under Section 15 of the 2003 Act, the Welsh Government issued guidance on local government, which is incorporated within the report. Under the provisions of the Local Government Act 2003, the Local Authorities Capital Finance and Accounting Regulations 2003, and subsequent amendments, and the SIPFA's Prudential Code for Capital Finance in Local Authorities, the authority is obliged to approve and publish a number of indicators relevant to capital finance and treasury management. With effect from the 1st of April 2008, Welsh Government introduced the Local Authorities Capital Financing and Accounting Regulations 2008, the amended regulations which requires the authority to prepare an annual minimum revenue position policy statement. This report sets out what the authority needs to do so in order to comply with this requirement. The recommendations are shown at 3.1 to 3.9 of this report, and I move.
Thank you, Councillor Stenner. Councillor Adams, I understand that you will second this report. Thank you.
Again, thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Yes, following Councillor Stenner's presentation there, it's very happy to support that and second, as was mentioned, recommendation 3.1 all the way to 3.9. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. Having been moved and seconded, the debate is in order. Members, if you have any comments, please indicate now using the hands up button. Please turn your camera and microphone on when called and lower your hand by clicking again on the hands up button when you are finished making your representations. Thank you, members. Councillor Cushing, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a quick sort of curious question. Bearing in mind the previous report, under the recommendation 3.7, that the authority borrows 42 million for the general fund to support the 22-23 capital programme and 17.7 million from WHQS and Affordable Homes Programme. I'm a bit perturbed, obviously, because of the amount of outstanding debt that we currently have. And obviously, WHQS is quite a worthwhile project within the community of the Caerphilly County Borough Council. So I'd just like to have further explanation on this particular recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cushing. Councillor Stenner, do you want that question or shall I hand it over to Mr. Harris?
Mr. Harris, please.
Thank you. Mr. Harris, please.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. The sums quoted in the report are actually an accumulation of borrowing approvals over a number of years. The reason we haven't yet borrowed is because we follow a practice of internal borrowing. And what that means is the cost of borrowing is currently higher than the returns that we can achieve on our investments. So it's financially more prudent for the council to undertake the practice of internal borrowing and use available cash balances to fund the capital programme instead of borrowing at the present time. In terms of the level of borrowing, budgets must be established to meet our borrowing requirements. But as I've already said, in the short to medium term, we will use balances and internal borrowing. However, there will come a point where those balances need to be replenished, and that's the reason that we seek borrowing approvals year on year in the Treasury Management Strategy. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Councillor Mann, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to say that it's good that we are continuing the policy of internal borrowing, which has been happening for quite a few years now. And as Steve said, is obviously makes sense financially. And again, I would just like to record the fact that I'm pleased that the returns from the investments are in fact going up, because obviously any returns from investments means more money into the pot. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Councillor Mann. Are there any other members who wish to speak? Nope. So I will now call on Mrs. Lane to take us to the. Oh, sorry, there's a hand snuck up there. Councillor Dix, please.
Yeah, I was just thinking with the increase in interest rates, I was always going for Steve again, with the interest rates, obviously going to get a bigger return, but I would have thought that any increase in the returns would be cancelled by the increase in inflationary pressures. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Dix. Mr. Harris, please.
Yeah, clearly it's a balancing act. On the one hand, it could be positive news. We may see better returns, as you say, Councillor Dix. But on the other hand, the cost of borrowing is likely to increase as well.
Is that okay, Councillor Dix? You've still got your hand raised.
Yeah, that's lovely. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, there's no other hands showing, so I will now call on Mrs. Lane to take us to the vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Members, again, you will notice the pop-up box on the screen shortly. Please would you click yes, no, or abstain, followed by the submit vote, and then click on done when finished. If the pop-up box does not appear, please click on the show conversation button and the poll would be open in chat. The poll is titled Agenda Item 4. Members, if any members are unable to access the voting forms, I'm happy to take a verbal record of those votes. Members have 60 seconds to place their votes. Thank you.
Lisa, Councillor Priest, I had voted, but then I voted and I put for and I put done, and then it went off. Is my vote still eligible?
Councillor Priest, I can't actually access it, but I'll make a note that you voted, and if it doesn't appear on the electronic version, we'll add you to it.
Fine, thank you very much. Thank you.
Members, that concludes the vote, and the recommendations are carried. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Thank you, Mrs. Lane. On to item 5, which is the budget proposals for 2022-23 and medium-term financial outlook. Councillor Stenner, I understand that you will introduce this report. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Members, before you this evening is an ambitious set of budget proposals that will support and protect our community as we emerge from the COVID pandemic and progress on our journey of transformation. I am pleased to say that despite having to find around £17 million to meet unavoidable inflationary cost pressures, the 2022-23 budget proposals include £9.6 million of investment and protects key frontline services from cuts. We have been working hard to develop these budget proposals over recent months, and I would like to thank all the officers and members who have contributed to this process. I am always conscious about the impact our budget proposals will have on our residents and the services that we deliver. We have worked so hard over recent years to protect the community from significant financial pressures, and I am proud of the prudent and cautious approach we continue to take with our financial management. This year, we have created a budget that allows us to protect key services, meets the needs of our communities, and it also plots a path for the organisation as we recover from the pandemic. The original draft budget proposals presented to the Cabinet on the 19th of January included a proposed council tax increase of 2.5%, which is well below the rate of inflation and the lowest increase for a number of years. However, we have listened to the concerns raised and are conscious of the significant pressures on household budgets. So the final budget proposals now include a lower proposed increase in council tax of 1.9%. This equates to 45 pence weekly increase for a Band D property. I would like to briefly mention some of the headline figures included within the budget proposals, and these include £9.6 million of new investment for our key services. £5.7 million of this will be targeted specifically at social care services, including a pledge to pay the real living wage. We are investing £250,000 for a new Caerphilly County Borough Council apprenticeship scheme. We are making significant investment in public protection services to increase capacity in key teams such as trading standards, enforcement and environmental health. There is new investment in additional weed control measures to improve our street scene. We are proposing additional investment in a community safety warden service to help keep our community safe. And we are allocating £235,000 to help target flood prevention and protect vulnerable communities. I'm sure you will all agree that this budget really shows that Caerphilly cares, and we are supporting and protecting the community during these difficult times. As always, it is important that local people get the chance to have their say and help shape the budget setting process. The feedback from the recent budget consultation is reflected in the report, and I would like to thank all those who took the time to contribute. It is also important to note that the better than expected financial settlement from Welsh Government means that the overall picture is looking positive for the next 12 months. I would like to take this opportunity to inform members that within the last week, Welsh Government has announced further funding of £50 million for the local government financial settlement across Wales for the current financial year. That is the 2021-22 year. This additional one-off funding is intended to displace expenditure met through Council's own resources during the year to enable more flexibility in managing pressures moving forward. The additional funding can be used for any purpose and can be carried forward in reserves. The funding will not be formally approved by the Senate until March, but it is anticipated that Caerphilly County Borough Council will receive circa £2.9 million. The additional sum will increase the current projected general fund balance of £14.516 million as detailed in the budget proposals report. I therefore propose that an additional recommendation be added to the report asking members to note that the projected general fund balance may increase by £2.9 million subject to formal confirmation of a recently additional funding announcement by Welsh Government. Turning now to the financial outlook, there are significant challenges ahead, including many inescapable cost pressures, such as likely increases in pay awards and inflation levels being at a 10-year high. A financial gap of circa £9.7 million is currently anticipated for the two-year period 2023-24 to 2024-25. And our ambitious transformation programme and series of service reviews will be key in helping us to remain financially resilient. The key message I want to deliver to our residents is that we are investing in our community, protecting services and protecting the public from cuts. This is the second year that we at Caerphilly are being presented with a no-cuts budget. Again, this no-cuts budget will bring relief to residents, that services will be retained. This is down to the very generous settlement from the Labour-led Welsh Government. The administration at Caerphilly Council are fully aware that there will be families within the borough who are struggling financially, many of whom will be facing in-work poverty. All members of this council are acutely aware of the soaring rise in inflation, the energy crisis, which affects us all, an unfair tax on a working population through increased national insurance contributions. We have listened to the feedback from the budget consultation, and the proposed council tax increase of 2.5% has now been reduced to 1.9%. This is the lowest increase for many years. At last year's budget meeting, I stated that we were going through the most challenging times for a generation. Sadly, this has not changed. In fact, as we exit the pandemic, we are entering into an unknown world, and none of us know what future pressures face us. I would ask for all parties to support this no-cuts budget and show residents that this council will not play party politics with people's everyday lives. I move the report along with the proposed additional recommendation in relation to the recent additional funding announcement made by Welsh Government. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stenner. Councillor Cuss, I understand that you will second this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. It gives me pleasure actually to support this budget, having been through previous scrutiny meetings in the past where we've had to have significant savings proposals thrown at us. This is a real positive budget, and I'm really proud to actually support it. Particularly, you know, we're coming out of COVID and you've got the apprenticeship scheme that we are launching for our residents is really positive. And some of the issues that most of us know as councillors that come up on the doorstep and that are spoken about quite frequently, you know, things like environmental health, you know, weed control, all that kind of stuff. Our community safety wardens who have been absolutely instrumental during the pandemic and before in terms of tackling community safety. So I'm more than happy to support this positive budget for our residents. I would also like for this budget to be recorded by members, please.
Thank you, Councillor Cuss. Having been moved and seconded, the debate is in order. Members, if you have any comments, please indicate now using the hands up button. Please turn your camera and microphone on when called and lower your hand again by clicking on the hands up button when you have finished making your representations. Thank you, members. Before I call the first speaker, Mrs. Lane, Councillor Cuss asked for a recorded vote. Do you want to see if there are 10 members to support that first.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Cuss, I'm happy to seek the 10-member number now to go to a recorded vote, or alternatively, I can seek the 10 names just prior to the vote being taken.
I'm in the hands of the chair. Either way, as long as it's a recorded vote and we know who voted for it and not.
Madam Mayor, shall I take the vote just prior to the vote? I'll take a vote of the 10 members just prior to the vote.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you. As we've got a list of members wishing to speak, so we can have a show of hands just prior to the vote. Thank you. Councillor Dix, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, just I don't think anybody would be opposed to a no cuts budget. I think anybody would be surprised if we were going to have a no cuts budget with the extra funding of 8% and 2.9 million in the pipeline as well. It would be hard to actually put an argument up for a no cuts budget with the extra funding that we've got. If you go back to the previous debate that we had, we're using internal borrowing at the moment to use where we need to, instead of going externally. 1.9% as a rise in council tax is a little bit lower than 2.5 point whatever it is of a percentage point, but that still doesn't go far enough for me, not with the extra funding that we've had. And I believe that we could easily cover the 1.9% internally without our internal borrowing as done with previous issues. So I think that we could do our residents a real favour this year, because you've had 8% extra, 2.9 million in the pipeline to come in March. And we don't need to have a no cuts budget. We don't even need to raise any more money. If we do need that 1%, 1.9% extra, we could easily borrow with that from our own money within the council. So I would ask the council to think about that, and also that at the end of the day, residents hasn't got such deep pockets as councils have, and that's the bottom line. We don't know where this is going to go in the future with Ukraine and rising prices, which are bound to happen. And I think that we need to act now and bite the bullet, and for the sake of our residents, to give them that reassurance going forward that we can raise that 1.9% internally by borrowing it. That's my suggestion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Dix. Councillor Stenner, do you want to come in at that point?
Is Councillor Dix making an amendment to the budget to do that?
Councillor Dix?
I can't make an amendment to the budget. You are the leading group. You can make amendments to budgets. You are the ones in control of the council. I just put forward my suggestions and where I feel we should be going on this. And that's what I'm responding to.
Okay, well, a council tax freeze would result in a shortfall in this budget of £1.428 million. So, we're going to need to know. You've said about internal borrowing and using the additional funding that we've had from Welsh Government, which we have said that we will put into the general fund, because we don't know what pressures are around the corner as we exit this pandemic. So I wouldn't be supporting a council tax freeze.
Thank you, Councillor Stenner. I'm going to bring in Mr. Harris at this point. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a couple of points. Internal borrowing is for capital purposes. It's not something we can do to fund the revenue budget. However, if we were to use any balances that are currently available to us, that would obviously only provide funding for 1 year, for 22-23. And then from the second year onwards, we would need to find the figure that Councillor Stenner has quoted, of £1.428 million, to balance the budget in the following year. So that would add to our anticipated financial shortfall over the next 2 years of 9.759 million. We would instead be looking at 11.187 million. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Councillor Cushin, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I seem to have some issues with the camera. It's not clicking off. I actually am supporting Councillor Dick's freeze on the increase in council tax, and there is a way that we can actually get that 1.4 million based on the policy and resource meeting which was held earlier on in the week. There was a number of areas where there was underspend in education, social services, economy, corporate services, miscellaneous finances, which equated to 10.463 million. I understand that 2.535 million is ring fenced, but there's an underspend then of 7.929 million. And I understand 50% of that will be going to the council reserves, which equates to 3.964 million. In addition to that, we have in the capital reserves, there is over 70 million in the capital reserves. Just over 30 million is ring fenced. So that would leave us with £40 million in the pot, which is a substantial amount of money to be left there, which is, from my understanding, more than actually Cardiff Council has in their reserves. So there is areas where we can do a freeze on the actual council tax. And I will not be supporting this based on recommendation 3.1.6. Everything else I'm okay with. It's just the recommendation of 3.1.6, which is to support the proposal to increase council tax by 1.9% for the 22-23 financial year. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Cushin. Mr. Harris, please.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. It's the same principle as with reserves. If you use the underspends to offset the council tax increase, that would only be a temporary measure. And in the second year, you would need to find savings to bridge the financial gap that we're facing. So that would only be a temporary measure, again, just to make that clear. Likewise, we're not able to use capital budgets for revenue purposes. And I'll just stress again, as I did in P&R, that the capital reserves that we currently have are there for specific purposes. I think, members perhaps struggle with the concept that these balances take some time to be used. Well, that is the case with the capital programme. It isn't all going to be spent in 1 year. It will be spent over a number of years. And in many cases, we're still putting funding packages together for certain schemes. So we're still negotiating with partners such as Welsh Government, etc. I also said to the P&R Scrutiny Committee that we will be looking at presenting our capital monitoring reports in the future over a 3-year timeline. And that will give members more assurance that those balances are actually going to be used, albeit over a longer timescale than 1 year. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Harris.
Just come back, Madam Mayor. I can't, in all good consciousness, support this based on purely that one recommendation, 3.1.6, because there are people out there who haven't to decide whether they put the heating on or feed their families. I volunteer with the food share programme, and I can't, in good consciousness, support a 1.9% increase in the tax. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
I move progress, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, councillors. Moving on to Councillor Whitcomb, please. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I welcome this budget of growth and investment, and in particular, the investment in the modern apprenticeship programme. Apprenticeships are not just about traditional trade routes, although they still provide excellent openings to enter the world of work for our young people and young people in the borough. The modern apprenticeship programme now embraces professional occupations, and this will provide the first rung on a career ladder and make available tremendous opportunities for young people within our borough. I think this budget sets that target that we are ambitious and that we want to provide future employment opportunities for people within our borough and particularly our young people. I, for one, endorse this budget. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Whitcomb. Councillor Leonard, please.
Hi, thank you, Madam Mayor. I would very much welcome this extra money from Welsh Government. I feel that our communities are crying out for investment, and our area in particular is going through a particular hard time with the parking, and I know our residents have been asking us if we can come forward, if something can happen in our area, and if we can provide a solution to the problem. I believe our officers have listened to us, and I am really, really grateful that you have listened to our communities who are in actual real need of investment into our areas. And I think this is vitally important. And I don't think saving on council tax at the moment is the right answer. I think in providing for the future with such an uncertain future it just proves to be more sensible. So I would just like to thank you very much for listening to our communities and for investing into our area. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Leonard. Councillor Martin James, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can you hear me? Yeah?
We can, yes. Thank
Well,
you.
thank you. Well, naturally, I can't support this budget because I can't, I feel for the residents there that are really struggling at the moment, as seen as the other people. But I got a question to ask over education. We were receiving, and I did ask this to Mr. Harris when we met, and I still haven't had an answer. We used to have a small schools grant coming from the Welsh Assembly government. It amounted to £27,000 a year for 4 small schools in our borough, which I believe small schools are very important to their communities. Now, this actually stopped last year by the Welsh Assembly, but being given the amount of money we received from the Welsh Assembly, shouldn't we, certainly after the pandemic, be investing into those 4 small schools, the 27,000 that they are going to lose? It's only 106,000 across the borough, and we should be investing in those schools, because you say, your colleague have just said, I've welcomed new apprentices. Well, each of these schools in the borough are going to lose 2 staff because of the 26,000 additional learning staff. So, I would have liked to seen some of that money topped up for the small schools that need this investment. So can you tell me why we haven't looked to invest in small schools? And I know from speaking to the heads, they've been told, well, they have to make cuts. They'll have to lose staff. So can anybody give me an answer there, please?
Thank you, Councillor James. Mr. Edmonds, I believe you want to come in there.
Yeah, if I could. Thanks, Madam Mayor. Good evening, members. Yeah, absolutely agree, Councillor James. All of our schools are very important to us, and as you'd appreciate, making sure those schools have a reasonable budget to operate on is equally important. Just to clarify a couple of things, the small and rural grant was a Welsh Government grant stream that Welsh Government took the decision to remove. In terms of investment into our schools, you'll note from the report in front of you that we're putting nearly £6 million in to protect the schools' budgets from any of the increases that they're facing this year. You'll also be aware that last year our school balances increased from around £1 million to £11 million. I suspect we'll probably see another increase this year. So there's a lot of money going into the education system currently. We will always do our bit to support all of our schools, particularly when they come under financial pressures. Indeed, in particular to Derry, which I think is the school that you're referring to. We've offered a strategy already as to how the school could potentially protect itself from the impact of the loss of that grant. For some reason, I guess that'll remain pertinent to the school. They declined that particular offer, but it is a strategy that is used in many of our other small schools to try and make sure that budgets stay on track. Naturally, we'll continue to work with all of our head teachers and governing bodies to try and make sure the schools are protected. But I think it's important to recognise there's a significant amount of protection in this budget already, and there are strategies available to schools to mitigate the impact of loss of grant. Thanks.
Could I come back there, Madam Mayor, please?
You may, yes.
Yes, well, it's not just the one school you mentioned. Sorry, Mr. Edmonds, but the thing is, they have been told, and what you want is to federate schools. Well, some areas don't want to go down that route. And I think because as you have recognised, this money was taken away by Welsh Assembly government, which I told you that anyway, right? I'm sure out of the money that we had, the uplift, which was a fantastic uplift by Welsh government, we could have found a way, especially after the pandemic, with everything our children have been through and the staff, we could have found a better way of supporting these schools in these times. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Edmonds, do you want to come back? Yes.
Yeah, please. Just to recognise again, Councillor James, there's nearly £6 million worth of investment gone in from this particular budget, or currently proposed to go into schools from this particular budget. There has been a significant amount of additional grant funding put into schools by Welsh Government specifically to deal with the COVID pandemic. That's what underpinned the increase from school balances from £1 million to £11 million last year. And I'll reiterate again, I expect that to increase further currently. There is money in the system and there are strategies available for all of our schools. We work very closely with the schools across our finance service to make sure that those budgets are protected and our pupils get the best out of the education available to them. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Edmonds. Councillor Morgan, please.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to say, first of all, that I fully understand Councillor Cushing's and Councillor James's questioning of any sort of rise in council tax, although this is a very well below inflation rise of 1.9%. But I'm constantly surprised at the opposition members calling for us to spend reserves on revenue aspect. Remembering that Caerphilly Council has the second lowest council tax in Wales and is in some cases over £500 a year cheaper than our neighbouring authorities at Band D. It's only because the finances of this council are so well managed and the spend of reserves is used to keep this council fiscally sound and therefore benefiting the residents by as much as up to £500 a year less council tax. It's only by doing these things that we can give that benefit to our council residents. So this call to spend reserves constantly on revenue is just a crazy idea. What I would like to say, first of all, I fully support this budget. It's a budget that clearly reflects some of the core values of this Labour group, good service, opportunity and equality. This budget protects the services that residents depend on every day, whether it's highways or education, social services, public protection. This budget is protecting council services. We're not cutting. Opportunity comes out of this budget through the implementation of the apprenticeship schemes. These schemes are essential for equipping our workforce for the challenges that the future will bring to this council. And very fundamentally indeed, equality, the £5.7 million increase for social services to meet the commitment to pay the real living wage for care workers. The very care workers who so obviously showed themselves to be essential workers during the pandemic. This 5.7 million very clearly underlines the principles that guide this Labour-led administration and its commitment to a fairer, more equal society. Let's not underestimate how critical it is that we support the workers who have for so long been undervalued. These people are at the centre of any hope we have for a full recovery from the long-term effects of the pandemic. This Labour Council are providing the financial support needed to steer a plan for the future, not just for the here and now. So I fully endorse this excellent budget and urge all members across the chamber to support it. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Madam Mayor, can I come back there, please? As he actually addressed.
Hang on a second, Councillor Cushing. There are other speakers. You have spoken once.
I
will.
He addressed me, so I wish to just come back.
He was addressing, from what I understood from Councillor Morgan, he was addressing you in general. So if we can call the other speakers, I will come back to you in due course. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Pritchard, please.
Well, thank you, Mayor, and similar to Councillor Morgan, I'd like to support this socialist budget. This is a budget not just of no cuts, but actual investment. Councillor Morgan and various other members have gone into the minutiae of what this budget actually means. And when you boil it all down, it's an investment, a key investment in public services. As we know, recently, the last weekend, we had horrendous storms and floods. While in the budget, there's earmarked £235,000 for extra flood defences. I've got members of the Senate rightfully writing to me, asking me what the local authority is intending on doing. Well, there's 235,000 reasons here in this budget for why all members, I believe, should support this budget. Just touching on my own portfolio, a massive increase in highway resurfacing, the biggest for many years, £2.2 million extra, constantly raised on the doorstep, as members will know across the chamber. Verge removal and creation of off-road parking areas in Teesside, Councillor Leonard has mentioned that, £400,000 proposed extra. Footway reconstructions, again, another issue that constantly gets raised on the doorstep, an additional 300,000. Drainage schemes from priority list to prevent property flooding, £300,000 extra. A vehicle restraint system replacement on the A467 near Abercarn, an extra 200,000. Cattle grid renewals, an extra 100,000. Speed hump renewals, an extra 100,000. And temporary for culverts to provide early warning of possible blockages, 100,000. And also in my own ward, which I know has all member support, Dollavellin Street highway improvement subject to residents' consultation, an additional 100,000. Now, there's a lot of examples there of the proposed investments. If all members support this budget, you will see all those investments. For all those members who don't want to see that investment, you'll put that at jeopardy. I urge all members to support this socialist budget. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Pritchard. Councillor Dix, you've got your hand up, but you
Yes,
have already
thank
you have already spoken on this motion. So can you explain why you want to speak again, please?
Yeah, I just wanted to come back to Councillor Morgan, really. I think that nobody's saying that nobody wants investment. Nobody's saying they don't agree with all the wonderful things that have been promised tonight and are going to be achieved with the council in the future. Because what we're saying is that the council has had a tranche of money, 8% extra. And if I can just check with the finance officer that he said they've got £2.9 million that can be used for anything. Anything is a big scope. It covers a lot of areas, anything, not specific to anything. I also note that the council, when it wants to, it can find money for things that come out of the left field, like senior officer pay, like extra money borrowing for WHQS, which came in over budget, and also 2.1 million on enhanced packages for people when they leave work. We can find money for that. And I don't begrudge that kind of stuff, because what I'm saying is we're only talking about a small percentage rise here, which I appreciate is only small for what it was. But I think that we can absorb that within the council and let everybody off this year a council tax rise. That's all we're saying. We're not saying we're against the services or all the things that have been promised in this budget. Nobody's against that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dix. Councillor Priest, please.
Fine, thank you, Madam Mayor. Blinking heck. Well, first and foremost, I do support the motion. I support it wholeheartedly. And funny enough, for the last couple of weeks, I never realised just how many children we were feeding in our council. It's all right to sit in here like we are tonight now. Go out on there, like I've been out there the last couple of weeks. So I've seen a lot of other councillors as well, a lot of other people. So for them to even contemplate voting against this budget proposal, I just can't seem to grasp it. They've had the explanations. All they do is repeating themselves. So carry on what we are doing. We will get the reward. I'm on it every day on the doorstep and our people in my ward and other places I've been. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Priest. Councillor Cushing, if you would like to exercise your right to reply. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. No, don't be wrong, not for 1 minute are any of the opposition opposed to this budget. The only opposition we have is recommendation 3.1.6. It's a very good budget, wholeheartedly support it. Now, I've already given you the resources, which the money isn't yet actually available, but it's a proposed amount that's going to be available. Now, this was brought up in the resources meeting, policy and resources meeting earlier on this week, that there is 10.463 million underspend proposed at the end of 31st of March 2022. We have 2.535 million ring fence. So there's going to be an underspend of 7.929, which 50% of that will go into the reserves, which is 3.964 million. Now, out of that 3.964 million, we're only looking for 1.4 million of that 1.9% increase in the council tax. So why can't we, because this is proposed underspend, mind, so hopefully that money will be there. So I'm not asking really to go into the capital reserves. I did mention it, yes, because there was a lot of money in there. I wholeheartedly support this budget, but I cannot in good consciousness support recommendation 3.1.6. So before the socialists go out there and saying that the oppositions are not supporting the budget, it has nothing to do whatsoever with the budget itself. It's to do with that particular recommendation within the budget. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Cushing. Councillor Cook, please.
Apologies, Madam Mayor, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Brilliant, thanks. I'm very happy to support this budget, and I urge all members to support this budget, which will provide much needed additional investment in social services, which has been hugely reliant on grants from Welsh Government to meet COVID-related costs, particularly the Hardship Fund, which I don't know if everyone knows, it ends on the 31st of March this year. Like, for example, the fees we pay to external care providers will need to increase next year to cover the increasing costs, including increased rates of pay, the employees' national insurance increasing fuel costs, long-term implications of pandemics, enhanced cleaning, hygiene measures, PP, for example. We can have a backlog of more than 600 hours in dom care, which we need to meet. We'll continue to provide an extra £1 an hour during the pandemic to dom care staff. We also see a significant increase in demand throughout the current financial year for childcare placements and supported living placements for vulnerable adults. So this will need more investment in future years. Whilst I've already referenced COVID-related pressures, it should also be noted that the Directorate was dealing with the costs of the demographic pressures before the pandemic began, and these pressures haven't gone away and will add to the burden of post-pandemic costs. In addition, the recent announcement by Welsh Government of the payment of the real living wage to all care staff, which we will welcome and support, but details on this are still awaited. However, work to determine the exact costs of income is going to be extremely complex and time-consuming. I want to again highlight this Labour's administration support for social services, especially this challenging and unprecedented times. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Cook. Councillor Etheridge, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Could I just say before I start, there are some aspects of the budget which are to be welcomed. The apprenticeship scheme is to be most welcomed. So is the care workers, and as you know, the community safety wardens. My concern here is regarding the 1.9%. I see that there has been different numbers to the Socialist and the Labour Party budget, the Labour ruling administering group, and I felt that we were all part of Team Caerphilly. If I take you back to November 2019, there was a comment, "It is vital the council is a listening council. There is a new direction." Now, we then went out for an engagement strategy where 45% of the people who responded said that there shouldn't be an increase in council tax. Then also we had 17% of the people said that it should be lower than 2.5%. Now, we are supposed to be a listening council, Madam Mayor, and when you have a high percentage of 45% asking for no increase, I believe, you know, they need to be considered. 8.5% from the Assembly and another 2.9 million, which is projected to come in March. Considerable amount of money. I appreciate that the 8.5, most of that have been earmarked. I've got concern again, Madam Mayor, in regard in the report it refers to the transformation agenda. Now I know Council and the Policy and Resources passed the transformation agenda, but it says in the report that a financial report will not come to scrutiny until the autumn. So obviously we don't know how much that is going to cost. I would like to see the authority go for a 0 increase in council tax. And I would like to formally propose that tonight, please. I don't know if I'll get a seconder, but with as Councillor Cushion and I've stated about the underspends, I won't go into the figures, but with this money coming from the Senate, I feel that we need to listen to the residents of the county borough. 45% no increase, and I believe I'd like to propose a nil increase in council tax.
I'm happy to second.
Thank you.
I'm happy to second that, Madam Mayor. Councillor James.
Thank you, Councillor James. Can I have some advice, Mrs. Lane? Do we take that amendment now, or do I carry on taking the other speakers?
Madam Mayor, that is the first amendment proposed this evening, which has been seconded. So you can take debate now on this amendment. There'll just be one amendment at a time. So this debate will be on the amendment which has just been proposed and seconded.
Thank you, Mrs. Lane. Okay. I'm going to call in Mr. Harris at that point. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to reiterate the £2.9 million that Councillor Etheridge refers to is one-off money. It's not money that will be available in future years. So the position I explained earlier, this would only benefit us in 22-23, and beyond that, we would then have to plug the gap that we would experience through freezing the council tax in the current year. Thanks very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Okay, Councillor Mann, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wanted to make a statement on the budget in general. Am I able to do that after we've discussed this amendment, or should I do it now?
If we discuss this amendment first, Councillor Mann, I'll make a note of your name and I'll come back to you once we've discussed and voted on this amendment. Is that okay?
Yeah, fine, thanks. I do support the amendment. I think there are various ways that this could be done. We have 5.320. We have what I call inescapable pressures. Includes corporate services, includes social services. Now, I know we've just heard about the investment into social services, but there was something like a 6.6 million underspend in social services last year. I acknowledge that some of that is not likely to reoccur, but and the other thing is that reserves are actually built up from the revenue budget. So we're talking about reserves. There are ways, and this council has been building up reserves for years and years. So there is no reason at all, in my opinion, why we couldn't actually have a nil increase in the budget on the council tax, sorry, not in the budget. I'll come back to my other stuff later with your permission, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Mann. Councillor Morgan, please.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. reiterate that this call for a 0% increase, while it's very admirable, it has to be backed up with some sort of substance. And this call to spend reserves on revenue spending is not something that you can do. Listen, if you did it for 2 years, 3 years, you may get away with it, but eventually you end up with no reserves and you get to a point where you're raising council tax by 5, 10, 12%. And we've seen this done. We've seen it done with other councils. And I would ask anybody who's considering supporting this motion, please understand when we spend the reserves, it's used in such a manner. Just for one instance, if we spend £4 million on 21st century schools, we get £12 million of spend in the borough. But that's not just £12 million of spend in the borough. That spend then reduces the energy costs and the bills associated with running that school. So there's an ongoing year-on-year saving when we spend money in the correct manner. I want to see our children sitting in warm, comfortable classrooms, fit for the 21st century, with all the equipment needed to give them the best education. And when you're voting against this budget, you're voting against those kinds of policies which this Labour-run council has always fully supported. This council is very well fiscally run, as the Welsh Audit Office have said. There is not a problem with the way that we deal with our money. And any call for cuts or to spend reserves, it I think there's a lack of understanding there from members calling for that. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Morgan. Councillor Cushing, please.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to reiterate what Councillor Morgan was saying there, that about the money of the reserves, the money that I've actually outlined and explained is not currently in the reserves. It's proposed that they might be used for the reserves. So bearing that in mind, the 6.151, let me go back to my notes, which I've made. The 6.515 million, which is a proposed underspend. So these are not currently in any reserves. The economy and environment, 189k. Corporate services, 1.314 million. Miscellaneous finance, 1.108 million. These are not currently in the reserves, but they could be used to support this 0%. And I will actually support Councillor Etheridge's proposal about the 0% rise. And I urge every member here to think about their constituents. We're not responsible for constituents in neighbouring councils, but if I was in a councillor in the constituency, I would be supporting them as well. We have to think about our constituents, not anything else. There is the money there. There's that one-off 2 million, which the Welsh Government have given. So the money is there. And it doesn't have to go on and add it on to next year's budget at all. The money is currently there. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Cushing. Councillor Ridgewell, please.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Goodness me, this certainly tells an election coming on, can't you? I never cease to be astonished by the blinding naivety of our opposition colleagues when they start talking about finance. Perish the thought, Madam Mayor, that at any point in the future, they might have any control over the budget of this council, because if they do, I don't know where we're going to go. It will be absolutely awful. Thank you very much.
Well done.
Thank you, Councillor Ridgewell. Councillor Adams, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yep, from the last 3 or 4 contributors from the Sensible Party, I have to say, where are we going with some of these ideas? Money that you want to strip away from the budget proposals have to come from somewhere, and they have to eventually come from what we can do with our revenue. And as was said, if you do it for 2 or 3 years, you might be able to look and say, that was great, look what we can do. And then of course you've got to scratch your head and think, how are we going to make up for all of that we did when things may be very much worse than they are now? We are very lucky this year and perhaps next year to have money to be able to plan for in advance. If that disappears, and anything can happen with the government that we have in Westminster, the monies they may have to be throwing at the economy because of the Brexit chaos that they've caused because they didn't plan properly, and whatever happens because of the political situation in Europe, Eastern Europe, we don't know what's facing us. We have to, it's okay to want things, but we have to plan for what we as a council can provide for the needs of our residents this year, next year, and the year after. And we can only do that by being fiscally responsible. We are responsible, we have been responsible. We have to go through 1.9% is more than any of us want to have to charge, but it's showing in all of the budget proposals where we are using that money. And it's for the needs of our constituents as a whole. And remember, many of them, unfortunately, will pay very little of that 1.9% extra as they're not paying some of their current council tax because of their current conditions of employment. And that's what we want to be planning for, is that they can come out of that need to be claiming any kinds of benefits. I propose, as so many others have, that 1.9% is very, very responsible for the needs of our constituents, not the wants of some of the pretensions of our opposition. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. Councillor Colin Gordon, please. You're on mute, Councillor Gordon.
Sorry, Madam Mayor. I hear with interest that the Leader of Plaid just said he supported 0% increase. So have some of his other Plaid members and independents. I'd like to remind the Leader of Plaid this time last year he was actually asking for a 2% increase in the council tax. 2.8%, sorry, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Gordon. Councillor Dix, please.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I've listened carefully to some of the comments. A bit disappointing, really, that they're trying to tar people who've asked the council to think again as being unsupportive of pay rises and improvements in the community, because that is just not the case. And I find it very disingenuous of Labour members, a party I once was a member of, who have sunk so low as that they got to hide behind that kind of argument. Let's talk about the budget. Let's talk about it in a sensible, grown-up way where we can say our differences without accusing people of being against growth, against the communities, and against some top cobbly and all, right? None of us are against that. We're talking about 1 year, 1 year, not 2 years, not 3 years, 1 year. Let's get it into proportion. This council can find the money when it wants to for things it wants to do, like any other council. And that's the way life is, and that's the way councils are run. I understand that. To raise this extra money now is a political decision. I understand that. But don't accuse people of not supporting it, of being against growth and against investing in our communities, because that is, I thought you signed a pact of being, decent with people, talking about the issues. That shows that that pact is in danger of meaning nothing. Let's all stick to it and treat each other with respect, please.
Oh, blinking heck.
Thank you, Councillor Dix.
Oh, don't be joking.
Councillor Priest, please. Put your microphone on
fine.
mute. Thank you. Councillor Pritchard, please.
Well, thank you, Mayor. I'm not quite sure what Councillor Dix was getting at there. We've discussed the issues and what members have said on all sides of the chamber. They've given their considered arguments. You know, we believe on this side that investment in services coupled with a very small rise in council tax, which is actually less than the proposed rise after listening to the comments from the members of the public, actually strikes the right balance. And I would say that all members of the chamber, and there has been a comment that was made recently about you need to look after those who are the poorest and think about them. We are thinking about them. We're investing millions in the public. That's what we're doing. This is a growth budget. We're supporting the public. And in terms of my own portfolio, well, I was out on the doorstep this afternoon, as I often am, and the issues coming up on the street to me was about resurfacing. Was about improving footways and things like that. Now we've got millions going into that proposed, so we are investing into the public. So I would say as well that administrations that go into an election promising a 0%, the public see straight through it. We haven't chosen to do that. We're proposing a 1.9 modest increase. If we were to come forward with a 0% increase, there would be probably members on the other side saying this is all an election gimmick. So let's not hear anything about that. This is a sensible increase, 1.9%, but it's pumping millions of pounds into public services. And that's what we're signing up for. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Pritchard. Councillor Stenner, please.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Totally agree with what Councillor Pritchard have just said, and I'd like to touch on what Councillor Adams previously said about our poorest families. We have a council tax reduction scheme where some families receive 100% reduction on their council tax. There are 9,034 households that receive this reduction. So Councillor Cushing also mentioned struggling families. I know lots of struggling families. When I speak to the struggling families in the area that I live, I point them in the direction of the council to see if this authority can help them in any way we can. Perhaps they won't get 100% of their council tax reduced, but they may be entitled to something. We have the Caerphilly Cares team who are out there face to face with our residents now, speaking to residents on how they are dealing with this cost of living crisis. And it is a crisis. We all know it's a crisis. So please, I would urge any residents out there that if they are struggling, then to contact the authority to see if we can help in any way we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stenner. Councillor George, please.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I point out to some members of the opposition that the budget actually comes as a package? You're not allowed to cherry pick your favourite bits. It's all in it together. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor George. Councillor Bishop, please.
Can I just go back to 2 points? It's not an election gimmick. The first thing I saw when I looked at this at the 1.9%, which has been reduced from 2.2%, I believe. It's not the people just on benefits struggling. I volunteer for food banks. I help out in the communities. It's needs and wants. Yes, it is. We need food, we need heating. These families need both. Whether they are on benefits or they are working, they cannot afford it. They certainly cannot afford 1.9% increase in their council tax. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bishop. Councillor Alsworth, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I agree with the budget proposals today and the council tax rise as described in 3.16. Do you know, some local authorities, some councils go bankrupt. We're not going to be one of those. We have had people working hard really, really hard putting this budget together. It's not thrown together, it's well thought out. And, you know, I fully support what has been written, take on board what everybody has said tonight, and that's what this council meeting is about, that elected members are able to speak. Let's be fair, we are doing this for the good of Caerphilly County Borough. We are trying to maintain the services, not cut them, and even improve them. So let's be quite sensible on this. This council is working very hard. Its officers are first class, and producing a budget is no easy matter. And the opposition really should have supplied in writing their proposals and not leave it till tonight. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Aldsworth. Councillor Tudor Davis, please.
Can I just remind Councillor Mann, when he has just before an election, in fact, had a 0 increase, and he lost the election, and the tenants had to pay for that for the next 2 years, that 0 one, and this is what already been discussed. Could I ask other clarifications on band A and B? What is the actual cost to those people on those bands? Because that's the lowest, obviously. Could someone answer that, please?
I can come in on that, Carol. A band A increase is 30 pence per week, and a band B increase will be 35 pence per week.
Thank you for that. And Mike, I will say this quite clearly: if we put up as within our budget a minus 1.9, I'm sure the opposition will want to come up and reduce that. That sums them up politically.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Councillor Cushin, you've already spoken on the amendment.
Point of order, Jeremy. You've been on 3 times. You know, come on.
I know, Councillor Davis. I'm not about to allow
the same thing.
Councillor Davis, I am not about to allow.
Not going to say the same thing. I'm just responding to a couple of comments that have been made.
Oh, you can't. Oh,
you are allowed to exercise.
Please don't swear, Councillor Davis, when you're
Councillor Cushin, Councillor Davis, please. That is enough. I'm going to call a halt to this debate on the amendment. No, Councillor Cushin, Councillor Cushin, I'm in charge. Councillor Cushin, thank you. I'm in charge. That is enough of the debate now. I think we've all said quite a lot. I'm not stifling debate, but I think we've said enough. I'm going to pass it to Mrs. Lane for the vote on the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to clarify, members will be voting on the amendment proposed by Councillor Etheridge and seconded by Councillor James. And the proposal is for a 0% council tax increase to be funded, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Councillor Etheridge, by the general fund balances?
Yes, obviously I would be looking at the underspends as well. Yes. Yeah.
So
the balances, yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Can I just come in just to clarify? They're 2 different things. We're either looking at the underspends or using reserves. So
sorry, were you using reserves? Sorry, apologies.
Okay, through the use of reserves.
And just to clarify further, members, obviously the motion that was moved by Councillor Cuss at the beginning of the meeting, I understood that to relate to the substantive motion. So unless members advise otherwise, I propose to take this amendment to the vote via the poll.
That's correct, Lisa.
Right, members, the poll will come up shortly on your screen. This is to vote in relation to Councillor Etheridge's amendment. So you will see the pop-up box on the screen. So members, you may either click yes, no, or abstain, followed by submit the vote and then click on done when finished. If the vote doesn't appear, please click on the show conversation button and the poll will be open in chat. Thank you.
Lisa, mine went off again then on when I pressed done after I voted, so make sure I against, please.
Okay. And members, the vote is now closed and the motion was lost. 37 members against, 10 for and 1 abstention.
Thank you, Mrs. Lee. So if we go back to the main proposal that was moved by Councillor Stenner and seconded by Councillor Cuss, I believe Councillor Mann would like to come in and say something on the main main item. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As I said earlier, I would just like to make a statement which appertains to the main report as much as the amendment. And could I start by thanking Steve Harris and all the staff who work diligently on the budget. As you may have gathered already, I'm far less impressed with the Labour Group choices from the options that were given to them. Caerphilly County Borough Council will have received £28 million from the Welsh Government to support this year's budget, equivalent to over £190 for each adult living in the borough, £190. In the last published list of usable reserves, which was 2019, Cardiff Council, which is roughly twice the size of this council, held less than 30 million in usable reserves than we did. So a council which, in fact, is twice as much, can get by with 30 million less in usable reserves. The council now, this council, is sitting on 180 million pounds in reserves. 180 million. That's around £1,000 for every man, woman, and child in the borough. This figure has hugely escalated by no less than 60 million since 2019. I heard the deputy leader and others claiming that this is a socialist administration. How can this be said when the administration has decided yet again to raid the pockets of our council taxpayers? Everyone in this meeting knows only too well about the serious issues facing all our residents, with prices rocketing for energy, fuel, even basic foodstuffs. Many people have mentioned it already. And also, we must not forget the national insurance increases, which are about to hit us in April. The council should not be adding a single extra penny to people's cost of living crisis. In the midst of all these issues, this Labour administration has decided to increase council tax yet again. Council tax is the highest monthly outgoing for many people. It would have been possible to freeze or actually decrease the amount asked for. There we are, coming back to you, Councillor Davis. Please justify this to the increasing numbers of people, even working people, relying on food to actually get by. Council tax has risen by a massive 40% in the period of the Labour administration, as from 2012, from £897 on Band D to this proposal, which will take it to £1,253. Wage inflation on average was 29.57%. But millions of workers, including those working for this council, have received much less. We have a chat column on the screens this evening. It's been mentioned a few times. If anyone has had a 40% rise in income in the same period, please let me know via the chat column. I'm not expecting many names to turn up. I'm happy to recognise there are good proposals in the budget. A lot of these have been mentioned, things like the community safety wardens, training standards, strengthening and food production and quite a few others. But these proposals and others could have been achieved without any increase in the rate of council tax. What does Labour in this borough do to help people who have to choose between heating and eating? Answer, they increase the tax burden. This year's proposed increase is relatively small compared to some past years. But was there ever a year to freeze the tax? It is now, 2022. I was going to give notice of an amendment, Mayor, but what we've already discussed, really, it would have been a duplicate of that. So I'll conclude on that, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mann. Councillor Morgan, you've already spoken on this part of the debate. What is your next comment in relation to, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to respond to Councillor Mann's. My last input was on the amendment. I was very interested to respond to Councillor Mann's speech there, if it's possible. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Again, I'm constantly surprised at the opposition's calls for 0% increases, as Councillor Mann is doing. We are all very, very aware of the difficult times that our residents are in. Our councils are very often a safety net for our residents in difficult times. And I think that the rollout of the free school meals that have gone on, not just during term time, but out of term time, just shows how much support councils give to people when they hit upon hard times. And this idea again, you know, about spending money which should be revenue money. But there is a question out there, you know, just to show residents what this council does do for people. I'd be interested to know if one of the officers could answer the question, how much our tenancy support officers save residents when they go out there helping residents and giving information. And I would, before that question is answered, I would like to say that if we keep cutting the budgets and cutting things out of the budget, as is being called for by a cutting council tax, how could we then afford to have such people as tenancy support officers? I just wonder if there is an officer out there who could answer the question, how much our tenancy support officers save our residents. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Morgan. Mr. Street, I think, is offered to take that one.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Morgan. I mean, I can't give you a precise figure for that, but obviously the role of the tenancy enforcement officers is key for many of our tenants. And that's very much around signposting those individuals that they find with various types of difficulties to organisations and parts of the council that can help them out. There's been reference already this evening to the work of the Caerphilly Cares team. We've equally got staff within our rent section and indeed in our social services department, which try and appoint people in a way enabling them to maximise their benefits. I know those rent staff purely in the last 12 months have brought in more than £3 million for our tenants in terms of additional income and additional benefits. So you're right, their role is key. They have to understand how the council operates and the various different types of help the council is able to provide and to signpost those people accordingly. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Street. Okay, Leader, please.
Thank you ever so much, Madam Mayor, and thank you everyone for contributing to the debate tonight. I think what is clear, we have developed a sound and sensible budget that will deliver for the residents of Caerphilly County Borough. The extra funding we have received is being reinvested back into our services and ultimately serving our residents. I would like to echo some of the comments made this evening, and in particular Councillor Stenner's comments about how we are working hard to support our residents again through this difficult time. We are indeed protecting our key services, shielding the community from the cuts, thanks to our prudent approach. But in addition to this, we are also making significant investments in a number of key areas that will deliver huge benefits. particularly through the £5.7 million investment in social care to protect and safeguard, again, our most vulnerable residents. This is a budget that I'm very proud of and I'm happy to endorse wholeheartedly. It goes without saying that the effective budget planning does not happen by accident. Much work has gone on into the preparation of the budget over recent months, and indeed the foundations have been laid over recent years, thanks to the prudent and well-managed approach that this administration has adopted. The revised council tax increase to just 1.9% also shows that we are listening to and responding to the feedback from local people. So we have indeed listened, and we will continue to listen, and we have one of the lowest council tax rates in Wales. And we need to maintain our base to protect it in the future. Many of our most vulnerable are protected already, indicated by Councillor Stenner and others. Our Caerphilly Care Service has helped the most vulnerable and has protected them against the cost of living crisis, as have our tenancy support through signposting to the tune of £3 million. The national insurance hike has been set down by a Tory government, something we cannot control. We have set our stall here, our free school meals and our provision through the summertime, as already indicated by Councillor Morgan, is more than, has gone well and truly beyond most people's imagination. Let's get back to this budget and, let's be clear to the whole community that we are a caring council and we are working hard to support the community through these unprecedented and challenging times. This really is another example of Team Caerphilly, and you might scoff at that at its best. And I fully support the recommendations laid out. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor James, do you have anything additional to add to this debate? You have already spoken on this main part of the debate, and I've noticed your hand has been going on and off for the last couple of minutes whilst the Leader was speaking. I'm going to take that as a no then, and I'm going to ask Mrs. Lane.
Excuse me, I can't.
Yes, Councillor James. Okay, I think I need to ask Mrs. Lane to take us through the recorded vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wondered if I could seek the 10 members that we need to be able to have a recorded vote. I'm happy to take a show of hands.
I second that, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Priest.
Councillor Morgan.
Councillor Ridgewell. Councillor Hussey.
Councillor Davis.
Councillor Johnston.
Councillor Aldworth.
Councillor Thomas.
Councillor Williams.
Councillor Howard.
That's fine, members. That's more than 10.
Leonard.
That's fine, thank you. That's more than 10 members. So I will proceed to call members' names out. I apologise if I call members' names out who are not at the meeting. I've listed the apologies that I've had. So this is on the substantive motion.
Sorry for butting in, Mayor. I indicated with my hands up that I support.
Too late now. Too late. Gone. You can't keep
I think it's Councillor Priest. Thank you.
Sorry.
Has the mayor changed then?
No, I was talking to myself. I had my mic on. Sorry.
Turn your mic off then, please, Councillor Priest. Councillor Mann, I think we had enough votes. Thank you. Any member who hasn't got their microphone switched off, please do so now. Thank you.
Right, members, just to clarify, this is the substantive motion as proposed by Councillor Stenner. Councillor Adams.
Hold on a second, Mrs. Lane. Can Mr. Harris come in briefly, please? Thank you.
Yeah, very briefly, it's just to remind members that there was an additional recommendation as well, just to make that point clear. Just to note, the general fund balance may increase due to the additional funded by Welsh Government.
Thank you. Mrs. Lane, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Adams.
In full support of the motion.
Councillor Aldworth.
For the motion.
Councillor Andrews.
For the motion.
Councillor Angel. Councillor Angel. Councillor John Bevan. No Councillor John Bevan. Councillor Charlotte Bishop.
Against.
Councillor Alan Collis.
For the motion.
Councillor Shane Cook.
For.
Councillor Donna Cushing.
Purely because of recommendation 3.1.6, I have to vote against with regret.
Thank you, Councillor Cushing. Councillor Cass.
For.
Councillor David.
For.
Councillor Tudor Davis.
For.
Councillor Kevin Dawson. Councillor Dawson. Councillor Dix.
Against.
Councillor Etheridge.
Against.
Councillor Mark Evans.
For.
Councillor Farina Childs. Councillor Anne Geir.
For.
Councillor Nigel George.
For.
Councillor Colin Gordon.
For.
Councillor Rob Goff. Councillor Goff? No. Councillor Lindsay Harding.
For.
Councillor Derek Havard.
For.
Councillor Adrian Hussey.
For.
Councillor Martin James.
Against.
Councillor Vincent James. Councillor Leroy Jeremiah.
For.
Councillor Gary Johnson.
I'm supporting this budget for the massive increase that we're seeing in our social services. Well done.
Councillor Barbara Jones. Councillor Jones. Councillor Kent.
Against.
Councillor Kirby.
For.
Councillor Ariana Leonard.
For the motion, please.
Councillor Philippa Leonard.
For.
Councillor Colin Mann.
And that have been against.
Councillor Philippa Marsden.
For.
Councillor Brenda Miles.
For.
Councillor Sean Morgan.
For.
Councillor Bob Owen.
Against.
Councillor Teresa Parry. Councillor Lisa Phipps.
For the motion, please.
Councillor Poole.
For the motion.
Councillor Denver Priest. You're on mute, Councillor Priest.
Still 60 years for the motion.
For, thank you. Councillor Diane Price.
For.
Councillor James Pritchard.
For.
Councillor John Ridgewell.
For the motion.
Councillor John.
Did you just call my name, John Roberts? Is that, yeah?
You're
I've
on
had
mute,
any
Mrs.
problems.
Lane.
I arrived late at the meeting, so I'm not voting. I missed an awful lot of the debate. Thank you.
Is that an abstention, Councillor Roberts?
Yeah, that would be an abstention, like I did to the previous vote we had. I was
Lovely.
well over half an hour late, dear God. Sorry.
Thank you. Councillor Royce Morales. Councillor Margaret Sargent. Councillor John Scriven. Councillor Scriven. Councillor Graham Simmons. Councillor Julian Simmons.
4, please, Lisa.
Councillor Stephen Skivens.
He's not present, Elisa.
Okay. Councillor Lynette Stenner.
4.
Councillor John Taylor. I'm not sure if John Taylor's at the meeting.
No, he lost connection earlier on.
Okay. Councillor Carl Thomas.
4.
Councillor Andrew Whitcomb.
4.
Councillor Ross Whiting.
4.
Councillor Lindsay Whittle.
And Erbyn against.
Councillor Tom Williams.
4.
Councillor Walter Williams.
For the motion.
And Councillor Zaplatinsky.
4.
Thank you, members. I'll just add those votes.
Lisa, could I come in there? It's Councillor Angel it is. I got cut out of the meeting at the start. I am voting against.
Against, yeah, no problem, Councillor Angel. I'll just add you to the list. Thank you. Thank you, members. So the result of that vote is 37 for, 10 against and 1 abstention. So the motion is carried. Thank you, members.
Thank you, Mrs. Lane. Moving on to item 6 is the council tax setting resolution. Councillor Stenner, I understand that you will introduce this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This agenda item is for Council to agree a council tax setting resolution for 2022-23. As the budget has now been agreed and council tax set at 1.9%, members can approve this and officers can then progress with the billing process for 2022-23. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stenner. Councillor Leonard, I understand that you will second this report. Thank you.
Yes, sorry, getting my camera on. Yeah, I'm happy to second that report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Leonard. I am advised that this is a statutory requirement, and as we've already agreed this in item 5, this item is just for noting. So that is the end of this evening's meeting. Oh no, sorry. Sorry, I got that wrong. So there's no debate, but we have to vote as it's a statutory requirement. Okay, so I'll hand over to Mrs. Lane for the vote. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The members will notice the forms, the poll pop up on the screen shortly. Please could members click yes, no or abstain, followed by submit vote, and then click done when finished. If the pop-up does not appear, please click on the show conversation button and the voting poll will be open in chat. Members, you have 60 seconds to place your vote. If anyone can't see the poll, I'm happy to take a verbal vote. Thank you. Councillor Leonard, you having difficulty voting?
Sorry, which Leonard, which Councillor Leonard are you talking?
Oh, sorry, sorry, Councillor Philippa Leonard.
No, I voted.
No.
Yeah, I voted.
Oh, that's okay. I just saw your hand up. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. No,
It's
I
okay.
didn't. Thanks.
Sorry, members. The poll is now closed, and the motion is carried.
Thank you, Mrs. Lane.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've now reached the conclusion of the meeting. I was being a bit presumptuous before, so I'd like to thank everyone for attending this evening's meeting of council, and I declare this meeting closed, and you may now hang up. Thank you and good evening.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening.